Well, thank you very much, William. Welcome all of you, particularly Dr. Sadanand Sahu, Ms. Raula Hamati, and my friend Mr. Shabri Nair, the very distinguished panelists. Let me welcome you to this very interesting webinar on the roles of our missions, in these very difficult times of COVID-19 and beyond. These are absolutely extraordinary times. We have seen that the mark crossed is already 13 million, whether it is an advanced country like USA, which is adding 65,000 patients every day, or India, which is adding about 28,000 additional patients every day. We are going through an extraordinary situation. In our lifetimes, I don't think we have seen something like this. Now, for us, what is important is in these very difficult circumstances, how do we plan when we don't know how deep we are in the tunnel and whether actually there is going to be any light at the end of it. As of now, no vaccine and no treatment is available. But nevertheless, we'll have to work. And in these situations particularly, I realized three things that should have happened have not happened. Correct me if I'm wrong. Number one, we thought that this is a very globalized world and there will be a globalized response. I don't think there has been a proper coordinated approach and a global response to the COVID-19. I also felt that whether it is the regional blocs or bilateral collaboration and cooperation or the international organizations, we do not seem to have a strong leadership in leading this particular effort. Are you not able to hear? Are you okay? Okay. In these situations, what happens typically is those who are vulnerable really have to suffer the most, and migrant laborers or migrant workers have to suffer the most. That is what my primary observation is. We also realize that we are awfully inadequate in terms of preparation to handle this kind of health crisis, despite having several regional, bilateral, and other fora that we have with us. As someone who has worked in the Indian mission abroad, I can say that even the most well-equipped missions also cannot handle the situation that we are currently facing. Agreed countries of origin have started to respond better in the recent years to the grievances of migrant workers, but that still cannot be considered adequate in these situations. Countries like Philippines have looked after their workers abroad well. India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh are also adding new measures like community officers and labor attaches. But during the normal situation, things are extremely difficult. I remember in my visit, in my stay in Maldives, I had visited the prison there and found that the Indian prisoners there had not been attended by either the host government or the home country government for years. And as a result, they are languishing. Now, what happens to these people who also happen to be migrant laborers, but in the COVID times, they'll be further neglected, even though there are some measures in place. A majority of these people, of course, in their home countries also come from lowest of the low strata, economic strata. And, they do face, starting from their first thought that comes to their mind about migration, they start facing the problems. Whether the recruitment agents, the visa and documentation, sometimes they get into the trafficking and other issues. And once they land there, of course, it is not that the problems are over. A new set of problems take over them. You're all experts and you're aware that starting from the agreement, change in the agreement, change in the visa status, change in the job content, salary reductions on the, on the spot, and subsequently a number of ways in which they're harassed, including bad working conditions or very very difficult climatic conditions they work in. Of course, socially, it's very difficult for them to interact in these countries. So in the normal circumstances too, the missions face enormous difficulties. And now you have a new set of issues in COVID where interaction is extremely difficult. And the entire cycle, starting from recruitment, their placement, and if they wish to return, the entire cycle is now in jeopardy. COVID-19 has essentially unleashed instability in the labor market, complete instability. It's difficult now to recruit people. If you are to recruit, how do you get them to come? How do you interview them? How do you select them? And it's most of these people have no access to either online methods or things like webinar or internet, or they are not familiar. In fact, they have basic difficulties like speaking in good or proper English, or of course, certainly they are not aware of what language is spoken often in the destination countries. So in these new circumstances, you will have to come with an entirely new set of solutions. How do we do that? There are ILO guidelines. There are certain best practices that have been implemented by certain governments and their embassies in the destination countries. For example, Philippines has actually ensured a very, very smooth return of the Filipino workers who wanted to come back. But India too has brought back about 500,000 people through several hundred flights, including chartered flights from all over the country. However, there are still hundreds and thousands of people who do not wish to come back. They have issues in transition. They have issues like pay cut, loss of job, loss of shelter, loss of food, lack of any health facilities. So they are undergoing tremendous difficulties. And those who want to return, they have another set of issues, because they return and what do? As it is, they have a very precarious existence in the country of origin. When they go on their work, it's precarious situation in those countries. And now when they wish to return, particularly in COVID-19, their life has become further very, very tough and difficult. Recently, I got a call sometime in March from a person who was stuck, an Indian who was stuck in Morocco at the lounge of the airport. And he was stuck there for 82 days. I kept on calling him once in 2-3 days. But what I found remarkable is the Embassy of India in Morocco stayed in contact with him, sent his medicines to the airport, visited him once a week, and when the situation was somewhat favorable, the embassy organized a chartered flight in collaboration and cooperation with the people, other people also who were stuck in Morocco, and collected them from different points, ferried them to the airport so that they could board the chartered flight. Now, this is an enormous task, even in the normal circumstances, but you could imagine the kind of trouble that the embassy would have gone through to undertake this kind of exercise. But indeed, this is the situation on the ground level, and to go about it and how to go about it, missions are often understaffed. There are manpower issues, there are financial resource issues, and now with COVID restrictions, they'll have issues of movement, they'll have issues of their own health. I know of an Indian embassy where there are more than 8 people and their families have got are COVID infected. Now, in a situation where already you are stressed, you have more stress on your hand. But that is where the challenge lies, I believe. Countries are increasingly aware that they have to protect their migrant workers in every respect. In the recent times, as I said, countries have taken a number of measures to change the situation. In India, what we have done is we have introduced something, we have rather strengthened something called Community Welfare Fund, which is actually expected to take care of almost every need of the migrant worker. But when you have to ferry back 500,000 people, 500,000 people or more, then you have to resort to contributory measures. That has also been done. But now on, I would think that the embassy's role, the mission's role is going to be more critical than ever. They'll have to do three things. Number one, they'll have to handle the current situation that they are facing. Number two, they'll have to gaze into the future and see what exactly are the various ways to restore the entire cycle of migration, starting from recruitment. Even though they are based abroad, overseas, in a country of destination, they'll have to be they'll have to be working very closely with the recruitment agents, the state governments back home. They'll have to also see how best they can have the pre-departure training program, how they can best brief these people in different centers. It's a task, but they'll have to undertake it in collaboration with the home governments, including the Foreign Office, Labor Ministry, and other agencies that are looking after. Number two, they'll have to work very closely with the stakeholders. These stakeholders are many at the country of destination. These would be the local foreign ministry, health ministry, the civil aviation department, the security, the employment ministry. So with multiple agencies, including international agencies like ILO and other agencies which come in into play during these times. Third, before I close, I would say that they will have to work on short-term measures, medium-term measures, and long-term measures. Alas, we don't know what is in store for the long term, but then they'll have to be innovative, they will have to be imaginative, and they'll have to work in very close coordination and collaboration with all the stakeholders. I believe that if this, the missions are able to do, then perhaps we could, overcome the current difficulties and would be able to look at the future in a slightly optimistic manner. Lastly, I'll just to explain the complexity, I'll just give you one example and close there. I got a call from Mumbai from a lady saying that she is COVID infected. Her daughter is COVID infected. One daughter is not COVID infected. However, she has to be at home, but she's handicapped. And the father, the head of the family, is working in the Gulf. And he needs to be brought back urgently to take care of the daughter who is handicapped and who has to be at home because she has tested COVID negative. So in these situations, embassies will have to employ very, very innovative methods to get the person back. Now, there are no flights, no ships, and yet you will have to try and see how best you can utilize the resources or create the resources in an imaginative manner to get the people back. Well, with these words, I would like to thank the organizers for this webinar, and I look forward to listening to our very, very distinguished panelists